What's something stupid you used to do in middle school to be cool? Leave your answers in the comment section below. Okay, let's get started. I'd wear 2 pairs of pants. Normally basketball shorts under jeans. If you ask me, then I'd swear it was because it was more comfortable, but really I just thought I was the shit. I did this sometimes because people kept pantsing me. There was this one kid who got his pants and boxers pulled off, and I was scared. Haha, that happened to a kid I went to school with. After that everyone called him Millimeter Peter. When I was in 6th grade, I learned that the girl I had a crush on was coming to dinner with some family friends of ours. I wanted to do something to impress her, to make her think I was really smart. I knew at some point she'd probably be in my room, as it's where the kids generally congregated during these sorts of things, so I began to set the stage. At the time, I was all about dumpster diving and hitting up yard sales with my other nerd friends to build shitty Frankenstein rigs with the components we salvaged or picked up on the cheap. So naturally I gathered all my old spare and broken hard drives, poured dish soap all over them, and got the hammer out at the ready. When they entered my room, I made sure I was furiously smashing the shit out of these drives with my hammer. Tiny metallic pieces and soapsuds flying everywhere. We made eye contact for a moment before she and her friend slowly backed out of the room. She avoided me for the remainder of the evening. All these years later, I can still remember the look of horror and confusion on her face. I can't for the life of me remember what series of thoughts lead me to believe there would be any possibility of her having a positive reaction to it. The pubescent mind is an interesting thing. Had a pretty righteous wave of extreme yo-yo that swept through during 7th grade. And by extreme I mean a bunch of kids getting excited over who could make their yo-yo sleep the longest. Yo-yo was all the rage at my middle school too. I actually got pretty good, and it still makes me happy that if I ever stumble across one I can nonchalantly rock the cradle and then go back to whatever I was doing. Same shit with Rubik's Cubes. Haven't touched one in a few years, but when I do come across them, it's tight AF. There was one guy in my high school who legitimately didn't give a frick what people thought about him. He'd wear jumpsuits to school because he thought they were comfortable. One day, his backpack broke, so he threw all his books in a bucket and came to school. He was a pretty cool kid, so people started trying to not give a frick, which is way not cool. Barbie backpacks, wearing YMCA basketball shirts from like 5 years ago, and a bunch of other stuff they'd do. But it wasn't ever cool, because they were trying to emulate the kid who just didn't care. There was a boy like that in my class. I remember once sitting on the school bus. When we got to his stop, he got out with several other people and they started walking down the road to their respective homes. All the other kids were clustering and talking, and you have to realize this was the early 70s, so lots of longish hair on guys and long straight hair on girls, t-shirts, and jeans and so on. This one guy though, has short, almost but not quite bust, hair and for God's sake an open vest, and he was walking by himself just not giving a shit. He was also super nice, and super smart as well. A very popular guy, but not for trying, just because. This was 40 years ago, and I remember that scene like I had a photo of it. There was a boy I had a crush on when I was in 7th grade. After a class field trip one day, a lot of people got really sunburned. When we were changing classes, I overheard him talking about how sunburned he was afterward. I thought it'd be a good conversation starter, since I was so sunburned too. So an hour later, when we changed classes again, I went up to him and said, "Hey Chris, look at this sunburn," and pulled up my shirt sleeve to show the back of my shoulder. He looked at me really strange and went, "Okay, yeah, that's nice," and went back to his conversation with his friends. For the rest of the year, I kept getting sunburned intentionally, so I'd have a talking point with him and kept going up to him. "Hey, what about this sunburn? It's pretty bad now, huh? On top of that, I have such a fair complexion, I don't even tan. So I'd just burn, get embarrassed and go back to being really white." I made a small device that was able to generate short high voltage pulses of about 3-5k volts. Very simple thing, just 3 components. Initial intent was to suddenly hit someone, but things turned another way. Finally it came to the following game. 30 to 40 people were holding hands. forming a large circle, and I applied my device to the ends of the chain. People were then literally thrown away in all directions with loud wow. I have no idea why they liked so much to get an electric shock. They demanded it again and again. I realized that it is dangerous. Any guy with heart disease could easily die. But it took me several days to cancel this game. And later we threw a door out of a window. Yes, a door out of a window. Pretty cool, isn't it? In middle school all my friends and I would have deep throating contests. Whenever the cafeteria served even vaguely phallic food stuff we would see who could take into their throat the deepest. The best part? This was in a small, fairly homophobic, at the time, the town's gotten better, town in Wisconsin, and we were all dudes, all straight dudes, with the exception of me. So over the course of a lunch period I could get teased for being super gay and get teased for not being able to deep throat a breadstick. This is gonna get buried, and thank God for that. In 6th grade my dumbass thought it would be cool to limp. I had twisted my ankle to the point where it was uncomfortable to walk for like maybe an hour. Someone noticed and asked if I was okay, and in my idiot 6th grade brain I was like, this is the secret to getting people to talk to me. Now, when I say I limped, I don't mean an old man hobble. I dragged my right leg behind me like it had just been hit with shrapnel. Imagine the most exaggerated limp you can think of. It was worse than that. If Monty Python had a ministry of silly limps, this would be the silliest one. My limping continued for about a month until one day my dad picked me up from school and noticed and told me to cut that shit out. I walked normally for the rest of middle school. I'm so glad that happened in a time before social media. In 5th or 6th grade, I got really into this idea of having a perfect ponytail, so every day, I would brush my hair as hard as I could, then slick a ton of gel onto it so my head basically looked like a bowling ball with a ponytail coming out. I also had a ton of tiny, sparkly hair clips, so one day, I tried putting 100 plus of them all over my slicked hair, like a helmet of limited 2 butterflies. I did this, I believe, for multiple weeks, because I liked the way it looked. I also went through a corduroy overalls and Timberlands phase around that time, so I imagine they may have overlapped. Needless to say, I was definitely not the most popular girl in school. Those freaking multicolored, shaped rubber bracelets. People would have arms full of them, and even trade them, anything from green rockets to purple rhino shapes, and everything in between. The more and wider variety you had, the cooler you were. It was like some awkward segue between the adolescence of trading Pokemon cards and the social hierarchy that was coming afterward. Edit. Oh yeah, poppers, rubber, hollow semicircles that you could invert, put on a table and launch into the air with a loud pop were pretty popular also. In my middle school years, a revolution was taking place in our small school called the Veto. It was this weird thing where everyone would go around and backhand smack each other under the chin for no apparent reason. It could be a light tap or a full force slap. Any of them worked as the veto. On top of that, whenever someone said something or someone was worthy of such a slap, we would all say give it a VEEE, followed with the yeah and the scratchiest, most annoying voices we could muster. This went on for all 3 years of middle school, though I only participated starting the 2nd year. It was actually so stupid that in some strange burst of nostalgia it came back during senior year of high school. Man, oh man, am I glad to be in college now. If you liked this video, please subscribe to Barely Original for more edit videos in the future. Peace out, nerds.